Ass. The whole documentary was ass. I don't understand how Netflix put this out. If you are not a Florida Gators fan, this whole documentary to me was a D plus. In this episode, I'm just gonna go over what I'm gonna break down what is to come if you don't want to watch the Netflix series. Save yourself some time, in my opinion. So it was 4 episodes. The whole thing was more of an Urban Meyer doc. He really talked in episodes 1 through 4. It was more of a redemption arc, telling it from his perspective and the University of Florida's perspective. It was definitely a slant on it. And for what it's worth, the stuff you tuned in for, the shit that was actually on the trailers, they glossed over. They glossed over the Pouncey twins. They glossed over Aaron Hernandez. They glossed over Carlos Dunlap and his DUI and all the other internal problems. The only thing I will say that they presented without bias was Urban Meyer's first few years there, where he came in and he had to have a military kind of training, where he brought in, coaches that were in a military style, and coming from Utah to the SEC, he felt like he needed to make a splash. So he wanted to run kids out of the program, just like Coach Prime. And he wanted to bring in his own guys, and he couldn't do that with them staying. So what he did was ratchet up the competition level. And these guys were working out on Friday nights and Saturday nights. So instead of going out to the club, they were mandated to go to the weight room. And in the weight room, they were in army fatigues and had all this army paint on and making people throw up. It was kind of sadistic. And I was like, you couldn't do this today, because social media is way bigger than it was back in 2006 to 09, and right now it's way more advanced. I don't think you could get away with that. Just like the guy from Northwestern who just got fired, the coach from Northwestern, Pat Fitzgerald, he ran those kind of camps, and it finally got out and caught up with him. So I think, for what it's worth, you could see that the program get turned around just like that, and what he did to do it. Now, I feel they should have focused a little bit more on Percy Harvin. I found that a little disingenuous. He was the best player on those teams a lot of the seasons, and he should have got more coverage, even if he declined to be interviewed. Like, I love Brandon Spikes. He was throughout the documentary, but at that same time, Brandon wasn't necessarily the offensive game changer that got them to win all those games. He was a fantastic defensive player, but he wasn't a generational linebacker like Ray Lewis or someone like that. So in watching it, I felt like Florida had an influence. University of Florida. It was definitely more of a puff piece than it was telling it how it is. I will say something about Tebow, though. Tebow couldn't make a case for being the top 3 college player of all time. Honestly, he played so damn long. I mean, you naturally should have a lot of stats, but you have to be good enough to play that long. So he won 2 national championships, almost won a third, won a Heisman. He could have been NIL superstar if he was born 10 years later. Tebow could have been making millions and millions and millions of dollars before even touching the NFL. But those are just my observations. I felt that the documentary was a D plus because of how much they glossed over, how much bait and switch they did in the trailer, because that's not what we tuned in for. Not this puff piece, not this redemption arc. So if you want to save yourself some time, go ahead and listen to this. And let me know what y'all think. Heritage Sports.